Hello, and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And as always, I have a fantastic and fascinating guest with me today. Her name is Anne Swanson. She is an award winning and best selling author, video producer, yoga therapist, speaker, and wellness consultant who teaches meditation to busy people with busy minds. Her first book is titled Science of Yoga, and her recently published book is titled Meditation for the Real World, Finding Peace in Everyday Life. And we can all use a little bit more peace in our lives. Anne has herself overcome chronic pain and debilitating anxiety, which led her to study yoga in India, Tai Chi in China, and earn her master's degree in yoga therapy. She blends cutting edge research with ancient wisdom to help others use effective and practical techniques that are easy to integrate into their lives every day. And thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here with you.
I love the busy people with busy minds because it seems like all of us are kind of like in that, chattery space constantly almost.
Yeah. And if I can meditate, anyone can meditate because I dealt with anxiety so severe I would pass out. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I had the
Mm.
busiest of minds, slash, still, work with a busy mind at times. So if I can do it, anyone can.
I can't believe that your anxiety was so severe you would actually pass out.
I don't think it's that rare. I don't think I'm the only one because people have these panic attacks in
Mm,
situations, whether it's, going on stage. For me, it was to the doctor's office and getting a procedure done. So whenever the doctor was really like dismissive or the nurse, they weren't providing compassionate care, my body would deal with it by just passing out. I mean, on the floor, convulsing, come to, don't know who I am, like really full on, not like a little faint, full on passing out. So they can't do the procedure anymore. That was my body's reaction.
you have a very smart body.
Yeah, so I obviously wanted to deal with that. So
Hmm.
I went to a yoga teacher and worked on some meditation techniques, and it took a while to find the ones that work best for me. But in
Hmm.
that particular situation, what works best
Hmm.
for me is to bring the awareness outward. And this has been shown to be helpful for people with acute anxiety and with, that feeling of overwhelm, or if you have panic attacks, or if
Hmm.
anybody listening ever experiences that intense anxiety in the moment, you don't want to bring the awareness inward and focus on your breath and your body
Hmm.
sensations, which are typical meditation focal points. It could
Hmm.
actually make you feel more anxious. So
Hmm.
if you've ever that, it's not because you're bad at meditating, it's just because you weren't doing the right technique if you were feeling anxious. So when you're feeling really anxious, it's really helpful to
Hmm.
notice your surroundings, notice what you
Hmm.
see, hear, and then begin to physically move your body a little bit. I'll ground my feet down, feel them on the surface beneath me. So more the outside of my body. Sometimes I'll even imagine I'm at the beach, wiggle my toes, feel them in the sand, hear the sound of the ocean. So I use a visualization meditation technique. And that makes a world of difference for me is to bring the awareness outward, and I can get through those procedures now.
Wow. So was a lot of this then related to your chronic pain syndrome, whatever it was that you had?
Yeah, just I mean anything. Eye doctor, the eye doctor touching my eye, I'd be out, which can cause a vasovagal reflex, so that
Hmm.
that can be interrelated. But yeah, anything. Anytime I felt not uh connected
Hmm.
or really listening to me, that's when I did it. And
Hmm.
so I do have a lot of chronic pain,
Hmm.
and that's also makes me a little extra sensitized to being
Hmm.
touched by others. So I'm sure that plays a role in it for sure.
Wow. So then, okay, you're dealing with this. You're dealing with the chronic pain. You're dealing with, incredibly severe and debilitating, I would think, anxiety, because you
Hmm.
never know when you're really going to pass out. I mean, you have a pretty good idea it will be in a doctor's office, but still. you go to this person to learn yoga or to take some yoga classes. What happened there, and what drove you to yoga? Did somebody suggest it to you, or was it through your own
Yeah.
research?
Yeah, so I started yoga in college to deal with my own anxiety, and I came to it for the physical practice.
Mhm,
Same with, Tai Chi. I came to it for the physical. It
mhm,
was like a way to get my exercise in, and I noticed it made me feel a little less anxious. But by the time you'd get to the point of the class where you'd be meditating, I'd be looking at my watch like, I have things to do. This is a waste of my time. I just did not get it. So that part didn't come naturally to me. I wasn't a
mhm,
naturally chill person. But over time, the teachers would do different techniques, and every once in a while, one would work for me. And I was like,
mhm,
oh, wow, that's what it feels like to
mhm,
relax, to be present. So that's one of the things that I'm really emphasizing with my new book, Meditation for the Real World, is there's not just one meditation style that is one size fits all for everybody in every situation. You need to try different ones to find what fits you and what
mhm,
fits the situation. It's a very different meditation when I'm
mhm,
anxious at the doctor's
mhm,
office compared to when I'm grieving the loss of a loved one,
mhm,
or if you're feeling like overwhelmed from doom scrolling. There's a meditation for doom scrolling in the book. So
mhm,
it's whatever situation you're dealing with, there's a
mhm,
different meditation technique that could help you out through that, even if it's just for a minute, a 1 minute meditation.
And that is one of the things, one of the many things I really loved about your book is that you broke it down into little bite-sized pieces. And it's not a one size fits all. And for those of you on YouTube, here is the meditation for the real world. And even just the cover, it looks like, you've got everyday people. They're just sitting either on a bus or a subway, and, one of them looks like he's on his computer, and another one's just kind of looking around. And the other one looks like she's very calm and she's
Yeah.
very present, but calm at the same time.
Yeah, most people, scroll while they wait.
Mm,
They're on their email when we're having these little moments throughout the day where we do have that
mhm,
time to get back in touch with ourselves. Instead, we get out of touch and we numb out by scrolling. So rather than scrolling while you wait, meditate while you wait. It could
mhm,
be as simple as, putting on a song that you enjoy, or you could put on an audio meditation. You can have your eyes open, especially on a subway or bus, right?
mhm.
Eyes can
Yes.
be open. You can
Mhm,
hear all the sounds around you as part of the meditation. So it doesn't need to be perfect silence. It doesn't need to be for a long time. You don't
mhm,
have to sit on the floor. You don't have to cross your legs, but
mhm,
you can get the profound benefits of meditation anywhere, anytime. So I do it at the
mhm,
doctor's office in the waiting room,
mhm,
so that I can prepare and be in the right mindset to like kind of bring in that chill attitude when I'm in there. And I notice that
mhm,
helps them be more chill. It's kind of more reciprocal. So,
mhm,
calm is contagious. And so if we can
mhm.
cultivate
Ooh.
calm amidst that chaos of everyday life, then it's going to affect how other people treat us and our interactions with others too.
Boy, I love that. Calm is contagious.
Hmm.
I think we need to make that kind of like, a national um, priority or a national goal. Let's all just be calm. And I think the world would be a much better place. But I want to go back to the numbing out part when you say how
Hmm.
people will be on their phones and just scrolling. And basically, not are you just numbing out, but it's almost like you are letting somebody else control your mind and control your thoughts by what you see on the screen.
The algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
You're letting an AI control
yeah.
your mind and thoughts.
And I always I'm a baby boomer, so I go back to I remember as a kid, we watched this cartoon called, the Jetsons.
Yeah.
And it's, the very futuristic and stuff. It's like every time I see things like this, I see the AI and I see people scrolling and I see some things. It's like, oh my gosh, this just seems like the Jetsons have come to come to life.
Yes. Yes.
And it makes
And
us
it's
a little bit,
rapidly changing.
yeah, and it makes us a little less human, I think.
Mm. We have to get in touch with that human part of ourselves and get in touch with nature. I think
Mhm.
that's a big part of the book is how do we integrate the science of health and well-being and, kind of biohacking
Mhm.
with meditation so that you can get a better meditation practice. You're going to be more likely to do it. Listen, we all know by now that meditation is good for us. There's a reason
Mhm.
that top CEOs meditate, and
Mhm.
that, all the neuroscientists that are
Mhm.
involved in this research, they meditate, like
Mhm.
top smart people in the world. It works, and it stood the
Mhm.
test of time for a reason. We know that
Mhm.
there's benefits for our mind, our nervous system, our immune system, less sick days at
Mhm.
work. Even on a cellular level, the
Mhm.
evidence is unraveling that it changes your genetics expression to be more positive. So
Mhm.
you probably heard a lot of benefits of meditation, and most of them, if not all of them, are true. And
Mhm.
even more than you know, this book goes over the benefits, the science-backed benefits, since I teamed with a Harvard neuroscientist,
Mhm.
Dr. Sarah Lazar, to write it. So it
Mhm.
incorporates these benefits that will convince you to practice. But
Mhm.
it's just like we know nutrition is good for us.
Mhm.
Good
Mhm.
nutrition, eating healthy, but we don't always do it. So
Mhm.
how can we kind of trick our brains into doing it? And I think
Mhm.
that taking away the barriers is a big thing.
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know the 1 minute meditations when you're on a bus or when you're waiting at the doctor's office, that's a great example. You don't have to sit on the floor, etc. But
Mhm.
also, what are some other ways we know that we can promote good health? We know being in nature is really good for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm.
Just going on a walk in nature, whether it's a park, a green
Mhm.
space, or near a fountain, that's been shown to have benefits. There's
Mhm.
just some element of nature, hearing the sound of the water, being under the trees, listening to the birds. So why not do a walking meditation next time
Mhm.
you're in nature?
Mhm.
Or sit in a bench and slip
Mhm.
off your shoes, put your feet on the
Mhm.
physical ground. It sounds very woo woo, but it's actually not. Talk about the science of earthing, what researchers call earthing. When you're physically touching the earth, you are exposing yourself to the negative charge of the earth
Mhm.
that allows your body to reduce inflammation, anxiety, depression, even lowers blood sugar spikes, which I think is crazy. So we see
Mhm.
these measurable benefits of just touching the earth. Like the science is telling us, get back to nature.
Mhm.
So if we could take these moments in nature and then be really fully present, we're going to get
Mhm.
even more benefits from being there.
So I'm so happy you mentioned the earthing thing because I'm one of these multi times failed meditator, but I have my own things that work for me. And one of them is just sitting in my yard. It's a big yard. And I have my special little chair where I'll just go out and just sit in the chair and listen to the birds. It's a fairly quiet
Yes.
neighborhood. And so I did it today after 2 days of torrential rains, which, of course, in Colorado, we love that because we always
Yes.
need the moisture. But today the sun came out, the grass is growing, it's green, it's thick. So it was late this morning. I grabbed my chair, went to the very middle of the yard, and I sat down in it. And I kicked off my shoes and put my feet in the grass. And I said to myself, I said,
Yeah.
earthing. And I'll never
Earthing.
forget the first time I heard about earthing, and I thought this just sounds kind of crazy.
It
You
does, but
know,
the
it,
research is compelling. It's in prestigious journals at good
mm,
institutions. It's really growing. So I'm so glad you described that scenario. And
mhm,
I think a lot of your listeners will relate to feeling like a failed meditator. And that makes me feel really sad, is that
mhm,
the expectation is so high that we feel like if our mind wanders, we're not good at meditating. Well,
mhm,
guess what? Mind wandering is the second step of meditation.
mhm,
Meditation involves mind wandering. Even the most advanced meditator is mind wanderer. So that's not a
mhm,
reason, So
mhm,
all the reasons that you're probably thinking you're not good at meditating, I don't have the
mhm,
time. Well, do you already do something like that where you,
mhm,
go out in nature and listen to the birds? That could be your meditation.
mhm,
So I really just hope to spread the word that we don't have to create these barriers and feel like a failure at meditation. If you
mhm,
feel like you've tried meditation before and it didn't
mhm,
stick, you might have just been doing the wrong technique for you in that circumstance.
mhm,
And, you need to try a different technique, which is why I incorporated 83 different techniques in
mhm,
meditation for the real world. And one of them is exactly what you described, putting your
Mhm.
feet in the grass and getting in touch with your five senses.
Mhm.
Listen to all the sounds you hear. Hear those birds. Notice what you feel physically with your feet in the moist ground. Take
Mhm.
a deep breath, smell the smells in the air, which the aromas from the rain were probably strong, but we know that aromas around trees
Mhm.
in the research that has been shown to reduce inflammation and increase natural killer cells, which are
Mhm.
in your immune system. They help you to fight cancer and tumors. So we
Mhm.
want that. So just smelling the smells of nature is quite
Mhm.
healing. Taste any tastes that are present right now and just
Mhm.
notice all your five senses. That
Mhm.
is a meditation.
Mhm.
So turning those little moments into a conscious meditation rather than, some people might pull out their phone and scroll too, but like, oh, I'm getting my earthing. No, it's not the same. You got to fully immerse yourself, even if it's just for a minute.
And what I really love is the feel of the air on my
Mm,
skin, on my
yeah.
face, and the sun. We've had some tremendously windy days. I've lived here over 40 years and I've never experienced this kind of a spring. We've had so many like horrible windstorms, like in probably like 1 or 2 weeks going straight. And just being outside was so miserable. Even walking from your car to, the store or whatever
Wow.
was just awful. So now it's just like, this is feels like, nurturing. This is healthy. This feels like this, Mother Earth is just kind of like, patting me on the face, not just whipping me around the street. Yeah.
Yeah, and psychologists call what you're describing savoring. So if you could
Mm.
take these moments to savor, to really be present and mindful with all of the elements of it, gratitude infused in it, you can integrate meditation into, little moments through your life and become more and more mindful and present.
Okay, so for you listeners who maybe like me struggled with trying to meditate and then having people tell me that I was just doing it wrong, which is, hey,
Mm,
yay, one
that
more thing
makes
to
me
feel
sad.
guilty about,
Oh, that makes
shame
me
and
feel
guilt
so
because I
sad.
can't do that. Well, I'm stubborn enough to just like say, you do you, I'll do me. But yeah, just these are wonderful little tips that you can get into that state because we live in such a world that is moving so fast and we're just having so much information thrown at us constantly and a lot of it is really not good, and to be able to have the ability to just kind of step back, listen to yourself, listen to your body, calm yourself down and get out of that sympathetic nervous system is so good for your health, mental, physical, emotional well-being.
Yeah. And you can think of like a 1 minute meditation, or even it could be a one
Right.
or three breath meditation as a reset button for your nervous
Mm.
system. Or
Mm-hmm.
really, you could think of it as like a knob to dial it down when you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
really distracted and in that sympathetic state.
Mm-hmm.
And come back into that rest, digest, and rejuvenate state of your nervous system and allow yourself to become more present. But, we're often told, oh, just be mindful all the time. That's become kind of a trite word,
Mm-hmm.
is just to be mindful. Well, it's easier said than done. Humans are
Mm-hmm.
natural mind wandering machines. Our minds wander. So you're not alone if yours does. That's
Mm-hmm.
human nature. We're constantly scanning for threats to keep us safe.
Mm-hmm.
So what we can do is have these 1 minute meditations or less that help us become more present. So we can get into that flow state and be in rhythm quicker and more often through the day.
So I now want to go back to the yoga
Hmm.
because I find it, as I was going through your bio and your history, it was like, wow, she just, she goes for it. I mean, you don't do anything small. Okay, so you're going to study yoga. So most people would look for a yoga studio, go to class a couple times a week. You went to India.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. And my teacher in India is a brilliant teacher. He emphasizes the tradition,
Hmm.
obviously, but also the science supporting
Mm.
it. He's self-taught in anatomy and physiology, and he introduced me to this whole new world of of the science behind yoga. And I left there realizing that the best way to be the best yoga teacher possible would be to go to the medical field. So yes, go
Mhm.
all in. So I, had an art degree undergrad. I had to start over from ground zero.
Mhm.
And I did the pre-med course load. I worked in a cadaver lab. I became a massage therapist at night, all just to
Mhm.
explore and understand the human body from this other perspective. Because I had
Mhm.
gone to art school, I'd explored the human body through figure drawing and
Mhm.
sculpting and in different ways. And so this was a new way to explore. And ultimately I didn't go into the medical field. I
Mhm.
ended up doing my master's of science in yoga therapy. When that
Mhm.
program popped up, I was like, oh wow, well that's actually what I wanted to do. So
Mhm.
all that science behind me really supported me in getting this book contract for Science of Yoga, my first
Mhm.
book.
So this is just great because now you know the body inside and out because studying the human body as an art student or as an artist is a whole lot different than cutting it open and going
Yes.
inside deep. Yes, because yeah,
Yes.
I did the cadaver lab. That was our first quarter, um, or were we in semesters? I can't remember for physical therapy school. And
Hmm.
I was pretty used to seeing things like this because I had worked as a respiratory therapist for almost 20 years, but it was so simultaneously fascinating and horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So now
Yes. And
how
then,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna say, and then massaging at night was seeing the outside and
And
visualizing it and seeing how do we respond with live tissue. So it was all a fascinating thing to learn at the same time.
wow, that's something with my Feldenkrais. I told you I was a Feldenkrais practitioner. That was one thing I would do because I had the PT background and just looking at the human body in a way and watching movement. And like you said, you're actually looking internally and seeing how the muscles and the tendons and the skeletal structure is supporting everything. It's really fascinating.
Hmm.
So after that, was it a natural segue to go from yoga to Tai Chi? What was it that triggered that spark?
I believe I taught yoga for about a year before I I'd already been practicing Tai Chi before I did my
Mm,
teacher training for Tai Chi. So
mhm,
they were pretty simultaneous. I've always taught them side by side. And
mhm,
interestingly, uh, people were just as interested in Tai Chi. I feel like I teach about 50-50 each of
mhm,
those practices. And that's partly because I spent most of my career in retirement communities
mm,
and
mhm,
working with people with chronic diseases. Most of my clients have five or more health conditions that have
mhm,
been diagnosed. And so some of the more complex cases and chronic
mhm,
pain and Tai Chi works really well with that. It's very
mhm,
accessible by nature.
mhm,
Yoga can be accessible when adapted, but Tai Chi
mhm,
just is.
mhm. And now, okay, so I want to highlight this for the listeners. I want to make this point one more time.
Mm.
Not only did Anne study Tai Chi, she went to China to study Tai Chi. Like I said, you just like if you're going to do something, you just go right to the source.
Yes. Yes, I studied Chinese undergrad and the reason for that was when I was a small child. This is another example of me going all in. When I was a small child, I was obsessed with panda bears, and I would only have panda bear stuffed animals. So I didn't want any other teddy bears. They were all pandas. And so I'd line them up, and I was a teacher, to them and running a class for them. And my mom knew I loved panda bears. So she said, probably just to get my energy out. Go in the backyard and dig a hole. And if you dig deep enough, you'll make it to China to see the panda bears. So I would do that for hours and hours and hours. So when it came time where I was old enough to be able to go on such a travel, it was like, well, I'm going to go see the panda bears,
Of course.
obviously. So I learned Chinese so that I could go and do that. And while I was there, I started doing more and more Tai Chi.
Hmm.
In, from a teacher that didn't speak a word of English. But then I also have my teacher, Dr. Paul Lamb, who
Hmm.
teaches an accessible, evidence-based form of Tai Chi that I teach now.
I see. So you're a purist as well as a perfectionist with the pandas only.
Recovering perfectionist.
Oh, recovering.
I
That's
do
right.
not identify as a perfectionist anymore. I don't think that's a good identification.
Well, I consider myself a recovering physical therapist, so I totally get it. And I'm a recovering physical therapist who hates exercise and thinks that chocolate is food because it is. But, exercise, ugh. But movement is fantastic. And that's, where I
Mm.
see the yoga and the Tai Chi, all of those practices, and especially Tai Chi. To me, and I've never studied it. I've taken like maybe one or two classes, but I will never forget. I was moonlighting at it was like a subacute rehab center, and they also had like a long-term care center with it. So I was at work one day, and there in the center there was a little quad, and there was a gentleman, and he was playing with one of the physical therapists' puppy. It was like a therapy dog, and he was throwing the ball, and the puppy would bring it back, and he'd bend down, he'd throw it, and this was going on for quite a long time. And the two other therapists were nudging each other and nodding and looking outside. And I said, "Who is this person?" Thinking that he, was one of the visitors, came to visit somebody, and they said, "Oh no, he's a patient." And I looked at them and I said, "Are you sure?" Because he's in much better shape than most of the staff members are. And
Mm.
they said, "No, he's going to be turning 100 years old in a few weeks."
Oh,
So he
wow.
checked himself into the facility to make sure that he was really strong to do, celebrate his 100th birthday in style.
Wow.
And every single day he would wake up, have breakfast, make his own bed, groom himself, help the nurses fold towels and take them to him, and go outside every day and do at least 20 minutes of Tai Chi.
Yeah.
And that right there, that sold me. It's like Tai Chi's the bomb.
Tai Chi is one of those practices that you get better at with age. I've
Hmm.
been teaching Tai Chi for over a decade now, but I would never call myself a master. When people are like, "Oh,
Hmm.
you're a master," I'm like, "No, that's something I'll get when I'm in my 80s, 90s, maybe. Then you can start calling me a master, right?"
Yeah.
It's one of those things you just get better and better with
Hmm.
age. I also dance like socially. And tango is the dance that when you go out tango dancing, the people that are the best are the ones in their 70s, 80s
Hmm.
plus. They are the most skilled. It's very much
Hmm.
like Tai Chi in that way. And so I think looking for exercises, movement practices, shall we
Movement.
say, that you can get better at with age is a very wise decision
Hmm.
compared to, things that we know, kind of cap out. So
Hmm.
I think that that's a longevity decision, and that a
Hmm.
lot of people are recognizing now with starting Tai
Hmm.
Chi as well as, adaptive yoga practices.
Hmm. Well, I'm a dancer, but I'm a ballet dancer, and
Mm.
I came late to the game. I was 19 when I first started taking ballet classes. Everybody laughed at me, and I was like, well, whatever. And, I'm still taking classes. As a matter of fact, I took a ballet class, and it's a professional level, like hour and a half class, Saturday and Sunday, so 2 days in a row. Little sore today, but that's okay. But even at this age, I'll be 68 in September, and I can still do a professional level ballet class without any joint pain, without, I mean, it
Mm.
just, I feel like I have gotten better as a dancer as I'm getting older, but this is ballet. I mean, this is something that's absolutely grueling, but I think the Feldenkrais the Feldenkrais work actually helped me
Balance it.
balance it and
Yeah.
keep my body safe so I could, do the dancing. But, a lot of the women my age go walking in there, and they've already had one or two knee replacements, hip replacements. One woman's had spinal surgery as well as foot surgery, and I'm just like, there's a better way of doing this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think maybe you have an advantage starting a little older actually, and that's inspiring to people to start their thing older because
Hmm.
a lot of ballerinas that started at a very young age, they were pushed into positions their body wasn't going to go into.
Hmm.
And that's where those injuries started
Hmm.
to get it happening, get ready to happen. So
Yeah, and I was very fortunate. Several years ago, I was studied with a woman. She was up in Boulder. She had moved to Boulder. She was from out of state. And I was able to study with her for about 5 years. And not only was she a ballet teacher, she was a Reiki master,
Mm,
cranial sacral therapist. She was also a Jungian psychiatrist or psychologist. And what else? She was a Tai
wow.
Chi master.
Wow.
And it was like, ta-da! So her classes and her teaching style gave me even more tools for me to be able to use my body in a way that was healthy and protect it from injuries.
Yeah, and that's really key.
Yep. So now tell us a little bit about, your book is fantastic. Again, I have loved it and it's, right here by my side. And tell us a little bit of the science of yoga because I think
Oh,
when people
yoga,
think
yes.
of yoga,
Hmm.
they think of going to a class again, hitting the poses, blah, blah, blah. But there definitely is science behind it. And I think that people forget that.
Yes, absolutely. So the science of yoga incorporates every single system of your body. People focus on the muscles and bones, but some of the most profound research is on how it affects our cardiovascular system, lowering our blood pressure, our risk for heart disease, improving our heart rate variability, your cardiac resilience, your stress resilience, and mental health is a really big area for research for
Mhm,
yoga. Depression and anxiety and trauma, all areas that yoga has been shown to improve, as well as chronic pain. That's a big one. Chronic back pain, back, just any, joint pain is what I've dealt with
mhm,
through my life.
mhm,
So just chronic pain in general. And then we often think of yoga as the physical poses. And the book Science of Yoga
mhm.
incorporates, all of the
Ooh,
poses
ooh, I
done
love
in
that.
UPI. I'm showing pictures of it right now. I worked with some of the best illustrators in the world, Aaron
Oh my
Lewis.
gosh, that is fantastic. Okay, so for the listeners, I want everybody to go to the YouTube channel so you could see, what Anne is holding up and the pictures that she's showing, because I really believe when people have a little bit more of a visualization
Yes.
or an idea of what is happening inside of their body, then it makes more sense. You're more in tune with it. And then your yoga practice, your dance practice, whatever it is that you're doing, your Tai Chi is actually going to improve like exponentially.
Yes, absolutely. And a lot of people will engage with the book by putting it right on their mat and doing the pose. And you start to understand, not only your muscles and bones, but the book goes through every single system of your body and how it's
Mhm,
affected through yoga, your circulatory system and cardiovascular system, as I mentioned, your immune system, lymphatic system helps to move the lymph through your system, return it back to your heart. Also, your endocrine system. So, helping to balance hormones. So, we could go on and on. Every single system of the body is affected, and that's what the book goes through. So, if
mhm,
you're interested in that, definitely check out Science of Yoga. And so, that book was done with, as I mentioned, DK, my publisher,
mhm,
hires some of the best illustrators in the world and design team. And so when I got the second book, Meditation for the Real World, which people don't really realize, meditation is the majority of yoga. We
mhm,
focus on the poses, but
mhm,
meditation is, if we were to break down the eight limbs of yoga, we could
mhm,
arguably say 4 out of 8, or maybe 7 out of 8 of them are meditation related.
mhm,
So, I Meditation for the Real World book was also done with a brilliant illustrator, New York
mhm,
Times illustrator. She does a lot of work for the New Yorker too,
mhm,
Michelle Mildingberg Lara. And so it's got these
mhm,
relaxing illustrations. Here's the
mhm.
person
Oh, I
grounding
love
or
that. There you go. There's that
earthing,
earthing.
sitting. Yeah, sitting on the park bench. So you can get those ideas of how to integrate
Mhm,
meditation into your life. Here's the Tai
mhm,
Chi section.
mhm,
So this is a gorgeous book, and you can find out about how to get it at meditationfortherealworld.com. And you'll
mhm.
also get into my meditation challenge, which is meditations you'll actually do for busy people with busy minds. 5 days, less than 10 minutes a day,
Uh-huh.
incorporating those 1 minute meditations you can take home as homework. And so
Mhm.
definitely go to meditationfortherealworld.com. And when you sign up there for the challenge, you'll also find out about how to get Science of Yoga, which you can get anywhere books are sold. But, I have
Mhm.
a bonus for you
Mhm.
if you get it there. So
So
definitely
now,
go to
do
meditationfortherealworld.com.
you work with people online?
What do you mean?
I
Oh,
mean, do you
like one-on-one sessions and group
yeah, or
classes?
coach them,
Yes. So I
becau
have some one-on-one clients, limited
okay.
number of, and then mainly I teach yoga teachers a Science of Yoga course that dives into my
Mhm.
book. And that's for yoga teachers or medical professionals, like people that have experience with yoga
Mhm.
and more in depth, want that knowledge of how the research supports yoga, specifically in the anatomy and physiology, applies to the practice. I teach a meditation teacher training.
Mhm.
It's a meditation for the real world teacher training. So
Mhm.
it's evidence based. You got the science to support it.
Mhm.
And it's really about how to teach meditation practically. So that's really good for coaches, martial arts professionals, people that, therapists could integrate meditation
Mhm.
into their work, teachers at schools. So definitely you'll find out more about that or be able to get on the interest list for that when you go to meditationfortherealworld.com and join that challenge.
Boy, you just kind of popped my eyes open when you said teachers. I mean, wouldn't it be
Yeah.
wonderful if they could integrate that into the school program? I mean, it doesn't take that much time, but I just think that it's a tool that's so desperately needed. And we live in such an artificial world,
Yeah.
where, you're inside, the lights instead of being outside in nature. And then if, again, it breaks my heart when I see these kids with their phones and
Mhm.
they're missing so much. And I just think that this would be a little bit of an infusion of, health and wellness that's so quick and relatively easy and so
Yeah.
highly effective and so affordable.
Yes, and we do have the evidence to support that it's helpful in schools for children or for parents working with their own children for
Mhm.
social and emotional learning, for less anxiety and depression. Actually, I have a whole
Mhm.
section in the book with a plethora of evidence
Mhm.
about how it can help both children and teenagers with mental health, which is a real crisis in those age
Right.
groups. So, as well as some techniques that can be used in
Mhm.
meditation for the real world. That's one of my
Mhm.
missions ultimately. This is why I share the science to support these practices and I
Mhm.
research it, is because in order to get meditation into schools,
Mhm.
into hospitals,
Mhm.
recommended by doctors, into public facilities like jails, we have to have policy change based off of the evidence, the research. We have to have, the doctors seeing that not only is this safe, but also effective
Mhm.
as an adjunctive therapy
Mhm.
alongside, medical treatment for
Mhm.
anxiety, for depression, for chronic pain, for them to
Mhm.
actually recommend it.
Mhm.
So that's really my mission in sharing the research, integrating the research into these books in a really engaging way to get them out into the
Mhm.
public.
Well, and being able to reach out to and affect the medical profession, I think is huge, both, physical health and mental health. That's really huge. And
Yeah.
just when you listed off all of the benefits, the blood pressure, the lymphatic system, the immune system, the endocrine system, you're talking you're lowering blood pressure, your heart function, respiratory function, the entire body. And all I could think of was, wouldn't it be wonderful? I mean, even as you were saying that, I even made a note of that. If it would be prescribed, I mean, we
Yeah.
get prescribed medications and all kind of other things that, maybe have side effects.
Yeah.
And I would think that the only side effect of yoga and meditation and Tai Chi would be better health.
Yes, that's true. All the side effects are positive. So there are rarely any adverse events that are ever shown in these practices. If anything, it's like, you know, less than normal exercise because we're mindful,
Mm-hmm.
during it. So less injuries than just a typical exercise program that you may start as a
Mm-hmm.
beginner. And so, yeah, it really should be prescribed. I heard this amazing story of someone, a friend of mine who Went to the doctor, told he had high blood pressure and needed to take medicine for it. Started to take the medicine, and it made him really it was not going well with him. And I would never, ever recommend this, but he just went off of it. So, of course, you want to talk to your doctor, go off slowly or find other options. But
Mhm,
that's what he did.
mhm,
And instead, he had heard, I could do yoga and that could help with blood pressure. So that word got out there. So he started doing yoga. Every day he was doing some yoga. And he went back to the doctor a few months later. He said, "Wow, the blood pressure medicine's really working." And he said, "No, I didn't take it. I've been doing yoga." And the doctor said, "Yeah, that could work too. That's helpful too." And he says, "Why didn't you tell me that first? Why did you tell me the medicine first? Why didn't you tell?" Oh, because most people wouldn't do it. That's why I
mhm.
didn't tell you first.
That's so funny because I did interview somebody recently who had a heart attack at the age of 39 in front of his 6-year-old daughter. Turned out okay, but it was a huge wake-up call for him. And, he was overweight, he was not, moving, and so he knew he had to do something. He went to yoga right away.
Hmm.
And he's still, what I think it's been like 11 years, he's still doing, he loves it. He added a couple of other things too, but he is passionate about it.
Yeah, can make a big difference.
I mean, something that can save your life, literally.
So lifestyle changes make a much bigger impact than we used to think, and than people nowadays really know. So a lot of people think, oh, well, my dad died from a heart attack, so I probably will too. Or my
Mm-hmm.
mom has dementia, so I probably will too. But your
Mm-hmm.
genes are not your destiny. The study of
Mm-hmm.
epigenetics is basically illuminating that our genes are not our destiny. When we
Mm-hmm.
look at identical twin studies, we see that somewhere around, depending on the study, over 90% of your likelihood of getting a disease that's in your genes and having it actually express is due to just your lifestyle choices. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on the study, 3 to 7% is due to your
Mm-hmm.
genetics. So your
Mm-hmm.
genes are not your destiny. If somebody in your family had something, you don't have to have it. Your lifestyle can make a huge difference in reducing that likelihood. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
word we really need to get out there. And the thing about meditation is that it encourages a healthy lifestyle. You make
Mm-hmm.
better lifestyle choices when you get in touch with yourself, when
Mm-hmm.
you get in touch with the moment, when you learn to meditate. And
Mm-hmm.
so, whether or not you like the physical practice of yoga, meditation is for everyone. So, say you want to do yoga, that's a great way to get into meditation because meditation is the majority of yoga. So, you should
Mm-hmm.
always meditate at the end of a yoga class,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's
Mm-hmm.
should be part of a well balanced yoga class. But say
Mm-hmm.
you're like, you know what, yoga is not really my style. You could do your martial arts. You could go for a run, be really
Mm-hmm.
present during your run. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's a great opportunity after you do your exercise, your physical movement of choice to really tune inward.
Mm-hmm.
Take that minute and really be present. Your physical exercise, whether it's the yoga or your movement practice, your dance, preps your mind and body to be able to be
Mm-hmm.
present. So it's
Mm-hmm.
a great time to integrate your meditations.
That's actually another way that I do, I'm going to use air quotes here, meditate is by doing the what we call Kihon, just practicing different movement patterns that we want to work on by ourselves, without a
Mhm.
partner at home, which of course is highly recommended. And that, when I started doing that, and I was just doing it so I could improve my technique so I wouldn't get slammed to the floor all the time by one of the guys. But I remember one time doing it, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, I solved a problem. And I
Mm.
didn't even realize it was a problem. I was just working on my movements, but then all of a sudden I saw the solution to a problem I was having with my office. And so a lot of times now it's just I'll start doing some of the movement patterns and it's like, "Oh, that's what's happening and that's what I need to do." It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, and that's mindful movement. So it's to be
Mhm.
mindful while you're doing that movement. Now, my suggestion to you is before or after your practice doing those movements, turn on the meditation challenge. Do that 10 minutes.
Mhm.
You know, for most of us after, but sometimes for that kind of exercise, that might get you in flow to be able to,
Mhm.
be really present for it. So, find an activity that you're already doing that you have a habit of and
Mhm.
pair meditation with it.
Mhm.
That's how you're going to build a solid habit based off of science. And then when we
Mhm.
look at the science of yoga, when we look at how it works, is that the physical poses are preparing your mind and body for meditation. So if you can pair it with some sort of physical practice, you're going to get some
Mhm.
great benefits. You're going to really be able to get into flow. And if you
Mhm.
feel like you're not good at meditating, I think you'll see better results that way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, hopefully you understand now that mind wandering is a part of meditation
Mhm.
and that meditation is boot camp for your focus. So it's more reason
Ooh,
to meditate. If you feel like I'm not good at it, my mind wanders too much, I'm too distracted, guess what? That's the reason you meditate.
I love that. Boot camp for your focus.
Hmm.
And the other thing, all I could think of when you were describing a few minutes earlier about how it works, your awareness, your mindfulness, and how that just kind of opens up and organically happens when you're doing your Tai Chi, your meditation, your yoga, and the science of yoga is all I could think of were two words, inner wisdom.
Hmm. Yes.
Because I think a lot of times we forget that we have that deep inside of ourselves.
I think of our inner wisdom as what scientists describe as interoception. It's the perception of the
Hmm.
inner body. So being able to feel, and as you're listening, try to feel it. Feel your heart beating in your chest. You could even place your hand over your heart.
Hmm.
But can you feel that pulsation through your body? Can you feel maybe your tummy grumbling or moving? Can you feel the messages from your muscles and bones? Maybe they're
Hmm.
telling you to readjust your posture right now, or
Hmm.
do a little stretch, or even have a sip of water. That
Hmm.
inner wisdom is your body is constantly speaking to you. And when we can
Hmm.
perceive and get in touch with that interoception, that, fifth sense or
Hmm.
sixth sense there,
Hmm.
then we can begin to deliver what our body needs.
Hmm.
And if your body needs you to stand up, you've been sitting too long, you'll stand up. If you need to
Hmm.
have a sip of water, if you need to take a nap, if you need
Hmm.
to look away from the screen, that's one way I integrate these 1 minute meditations into my life is we stare at the screen so much. Our minds are not meant to stare at this small little screen for so long, especially. Look out a window. And if you can right now, look in the distance. Maybe it's in your space you're in. If you can look far away, let your vision expand. Or if you can look out a window, look out a window. Notice what you see. Let your eyes relax and soften. Notice what you see. And feel free to keep your eyes open or close your eyes if it's safe to do so, or if you'd like to, it's just an option. You still notice what you see with the shapes and colors and light. And then notice what you hear
Hmm.
from far away to up close. Maybe even hearing your own breath. Take a deep inhale. Notice what you smell. Exhale slowly. Notice what you taste. And finally, feeling what you physically feel. That interoception, that inner wisdom. If your eyes are closed, gently open your eyes. Notice what you feel, taste, smell, hear, and see simultaneously. Just take it all in. That's a 1 minute meditation I do all the time.
Hmm.
It's just the five senses meditation to take a break from the screen.
Hmm. Beautiful. That's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Anne, this has been wonderful. I've just really enjoyed talking with you and having you on the show and with hearing your wisdom and sharing all of that knowledge and wisdom with us. I appreciate it. And I do have one question for you. If you could go back and talk to that little girl, the booming perfectionist and the all pandas, the one who was actually dealing with anxiety,
Mm.
and you could go back and what would you tell her? I mean, to see where you are today and where this journey has taken her. What would you say, or what would you even believe that this was possible?
I think that, like many listeners that you have, feels like I always had these disparate interests,
Mhm,
you sharing all the things that you have studied. It's like
mhm,
we have all these interests, and
mhm,
we feel like, society tells us just choose or specialize, or you can't be into Chinese and Spanish and Tai Chi and yoga and science and art and all the things. You can't be into all of those things. Choose. And if you follow your path, and, in yoga, we say your dharma, your like true purpose, if you keep following your interests, then it all comes together. So I would say just the phrase, it all comes together, because it was crazy how much it's all come together for me with the art and science and doing these really artistic books about science, and with all the things that I've studied. Just it all comes together. And I feel like society and everybody told me, like, oh no, you can't be into this and that, and those things don't make sense. Massage and cadaver lab and this and that. And I'm sure, if you're so much like me in that way, that a lot of your
mhm,
listeners feel like, gosh, I have so many different interests, and
mhm.
it all comes together.
That's great. I know. Yeah, I certainly experienced that myself a lot, but it's, nobody can tell us what to do and how to run our own lives. It's our lives.
Hmm.
So, where can people find you, Anne? How can they get a hold of you? Of course, all the links, everything's in the show notes already, but
Yeah.
I love to have my guests articulate it because it makes it a little more personal and a nice connection.
Yes. The main thing is definitely go to meditationfortherealworld.com. That's all you have to remember, because we'll be in contact from there. You'll join the meditation challenge. You'll find out about how to get the books. And if you're interested in the meditation teacher training or any of the things I've mentioned, meditationfortherealworld.com is the way to get started.
Well, Anne, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us. It's been wonderful having you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening, and share this episode with everyone you know. I really believe that, the world's gone a little crazy lately, and we can all use a little bit more peace of mind and peace in our lives. And it's not that hard if you get this meditation practice started every single day. Start small steps if you need to. Connect with Anne, follow her, join the meditation challenge, and just remember, don't let anybody else tell you how to run your life. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.